Right guys, okay, so this is what we're doing in this lesson. We are adding bats, and the bats fire projectiles at us when we get close enough. And if the projectiles hit us, then we die, yeah? And if the bat hits us, then we die. Yeah? And the more bats you add, the more difficult it is to run away from the bats. Okay, phew. Okay, and when you're not close to the bats just go in a kind of circle. Okay, so really nice, really interesting gameplay this. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. Right, okay, so I'm starting with a completely empty project. Okay, so it's brand new. There's no coins, there's no chests, there's no levers, there's nothing. And the reason I'm doing this is so that I don't miss anything. Yeah. So I'm starting from scratch. So, objects, games, enemies. Okay, so the first thing we need is a new object. This object is going to be called obj bat. The sprite, here we've got bats, and it's this one here. Okay. Now we need another new object, this time for the projectile. So this is obj bat projectile. And this sprite is going to be the projectile, okay? And this is what we're going to, this is what the bat is going to fire at us, yeah? Now, I've made a bit of a mistake. This is down here, so I need to drag this up here so that now it's in enemies. There we go. Okay, so new button, last object, obj bat splat. Okay, and this is what we're going to see when the projectile hits the wall. Right, okay, so let's go to our room and let's add a bat and let's see what happens. Okay, so I don't need this, I can close that. Let me open this a little bit. I need to make sure here I'm on instances. And my bat, where's my bat? Just drag my bat in. Okay. Right, let's press play and see what happens. Okay, alright, so there's a bat there, it's animated, but apart from that, it's not doing anything. Right, so it's not doing anything because it's not set up as an enemy. Okay, so into obj bat. The parent, now this parent needs to be an enemy. So game, enemies, and then here we go, enemy parent, yeah? And this, by doing this, when we now hit the bat, it's going to kill us because the bat inherits certain properties from this parent. We need to do the same for the projectile. So this parent, also enemy parent. Okay, now if we run that, now if we touch the bat, we should die. Good, and we do. Right, okay, so far so good. Now, we want the bat to follow us, but before, yes, we want the bat to follow us. Now have a look at this. Okay, so the bat will be sleeping until we go into this kind of zone, yeah? And when we go into this zone, the bat will wake up and the bat will follow us and try to kill us. Okay, so we need to define this kind of rectangle, which is 200 pixels by 200 pixels. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So we need to open obj bat, yeah? And we need an event. This event is going to be a new step event. Now, step events run very frequently. They run 60 every second. So this event will run every 60 times a second. Right, now in here, if collision shape. So we need to define the rectangle. obj player. It's going to be a rectangle, minus 200, minus 200, 200, 200. And all of these need to be relative. Okay, so this is going to say, if this object goes into this thing, then we want to do something. Now, what do we want to do? We want to set the speed. So this one here. Now remember, we need to drag it here to the right, okay? We need to set the speed. We're going to set the speed to 2 and set the point direction. We're going to set the point direction so that the bat heads in the direction of, wait, that's not right, player, so that the bat heads in the direction of the player. Okay, dot X and dot Y, and these, none of these are relative. Okay, right, now let's try it. Okay, so now, if we get close to the bat will follow us. Good. And if it hits us, we die. Okay, now one thing, yeah. So the bat can actually travel through the wall, yeah, which is not what we want. Okay, so we need to fix that. We don't want the bat to be able to travel through walls because that's kind of cheating. So we need to open this obj enemy parent. Yeah, and look here. This has got 3 children. So the baddie, the bat, and the bat projectile. Now in the future, there might be more enemies. Yeah, and we want them. We don't want any of them to be able to walk through to be able to walk through the wall. Okay, now the player can't walk through walls, so there's something here that we need to copy to the enemy parent, and it's this thing here, obj collision parent. Okay, now if we right click and copy that event, go to our enemy parent, and up here in events, paste that. Okay, now the bat shouldn't be able to go through the wall. Yeah. Now, did you see that? Okay, so it can still go through there. And look, even the player. And if we go up. So there's bits of the wall that we can still walk through. And that's because even though this looks like a wall, it doesn't behave like a wall unless we tell it it is a wall. Yeah? It's a bit confusing. But basically, up here, we've got something called wall collisions. And this allows us to define what is a wall and what isn't. Wait, excuse me. So if we turn this on, because at the moment it's hidden, if we turn that on, we can suddenly see here, this area here is a wall, but this area here isn't. And that's why we and the baddies can walk through this area. So if we make that bigger, now all of a sudden we can't walk through here. Yeah, and the same here. Yeah, and we can do this, and you will notice various parts of the room are not set up quite correctly. So we can go ahead and we can change them, like here. Yeah, this is a wall, so this should function as a wall. So we can go ahead and we can fix that. Now this is a bit time consuming, and you need to decide whether or not you want to do this, or whether or not you just want it to be a feature that you can walk through various bits of the room, yeah? For example, all of this, that's very strange. Okay. All of this, I think, should be a wall, yeah? But you decide what you want as a wall and what you don't want, and you can change this accordingly. Right, okay. So now the bat will be stopped by the wall, and so will we. Yeah, we will no longer be able to walk through it. There we go. So we're stuck. But if we go up, it can get through. Okay, good. Run away. And it can't get through. Okay, good. So that's what we want. Now, let's go back to obj bat. And let's go back to the step event. Because it would be nice, let's hide this. It would be nice when we're not in the zone, when we're not in this rectangle, it would be nice if the bat was just kind of making a circle. Yeah? So let's go ahead and let's add that. So we need an else. And it needs to go here. Yeah? So, wait. If we're in the rectangle, do this. If we're not in the rectangle, then we want the bat to just make a circle. Okay, so we need to set the speed. And again, this needs to go here. Set the speed to 2. And set a direction, set a direction variable. Just under here to 2. And this is going to be relative. Okay. So our code looks something like this. If collision shape, set speed, set point direction, else set speed, set direction variable. Now let's run that. Okay, and now, yeah, we can see our bat just making a circle. When we get close to it, it starts to move towards us. Okay, right, so far, so good. Okay, so what's next? Next, we want to shoot, yeah? We want the bat to shoot projectiles. Okay, so we've got our projectile object. It's set up as a parent. So let's add a create event. Okay, so add event. This is going to be a create event. And in here, we're going to set our speed. So this is the speed of the projectiles, okay? This is the speed of this, yeah? We're going to set the speed. If instance exists, and the instance, the object that we're interested in, is obj player. So if the player exists, then set the point direction. This needs to go here, remember? Set point direction, obj player, dot x, obj player dot y. Okay, these are not relative. Okay, so if the player is in the room, then we want to fire these towards the player. Yeah, and set the instance rotation. Set the instance rotation to direction. Okay, so we want this to turn and face and head towards the player. If the player is here, yeah, we want this to kind of shoot up here. Right, okay, so we've done that. We've created our projectile. Okay, now, it would be nice if when it flies through the air, there's a little bit of a trail on the end of it. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So, we can close this for now. In our bat projectile, let's add an event. Let's add a step event. And in this step event, we want to generate a random number. Yeah? And actually, we want to generate 2 random numbers. So they're both going to be integers. They're both going to have a minimum of -5. And they're both going to have a maximum of 5. Yeah. This is going to be called relative x. And this is going to be called relative y. Okay. And these are temporary variables. Now, after that, let's have a do effect. Let's have a nice trail. Let's have a spark. Again, you can play with these. Yeah. Above the object, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste this here. Paste this here. This needs to be x. Okay. Relative x, relative y. These are going to be relative. Now, this is green. So this needs to be green. Well, it doesn't need to be, but it's helpful if it is green. Right, okay. Now, if we run that, let's see what happens. Okay, making a circle, it follows us. But where's the projectile? Okay, it's not firing anything at us. And it's not doing that because we've created the projectile and we've animated the kind of trail for the projectile, but we haven't actually fired the projectile yet. Okay, so we need to go ahead and do that. But first of all, before we do this, we want to make sure that these projectiles can't go through the wall. Yeah, so if we can open our OBJ projectile, and here you see that we've got this collision parent. Now, it's kind of grayed out, and that's because we've inherited this from our parent, from this OBJ enemy. Now, what we want to do is we want to right click, we want to override this event. And in here, we just want to destroy the instance. Okay, so we don't want this to fly through walls. If it hits a wall, we just want it to be destroyed. Okay, right, so far so good. Right, now let's get to the interesting bit of actually spawning, of actually firing these projectiles. So for this, we need to open OBJ bat, and we need an alarm. Okay, so we need to add an event, an alarm, and we can pick any, but we're going to use alarm 0. Yeah. Now in here, we are going to create an instance, and what we're going to create is OBJ bat projectile. Okay, we're going to create the thing that we fire at 0 and at y, but these are going to be relative, and we want to set an alarm countdown. Okay, we're going to set this to 90. Now 90 means that every 1.5 seconds, let me hide this, every 1.5 seconds, this alarm is going to sound, and we want to fire a new projectile. Okay, so we can close that. We can go back to the step event. Now we've already got some code here. We've worked on this, but here we want to make some changes. So we want an if variable to come here under this. Yeah. So we've got this if collision, set speed, set point direction. Then we've got a variable, and we want to say if the alarm 0, if this, let me hide that. If this is less than 0, then let's set the alarm countdown. Now remember, this is an if statement, so this needs to go here, yeah? Because we only want to do this if this is true. We want to set this to 1, yeah? So this will tell alarm 0 to run after 1 frame as long as it's inactive. Now, we also need to make a change here. So else, let's have the same thing. Let's drag this down here. Okay, so else, set speed, set direction, set alarm countdown, and here we want to set this to -1. And this is going to deactivate the alarm if we're not in this zone. We don't want the bat to fire projectiles at us, okay? Because we're too far away, so the bat's not going to hit us. It's a waste of time, yeah? So if we're outside that zone, we need to tell the bat, okay, don't bother firing at us. Right, well, let's run this and let's see what happens. Oh, okay. All right, very good. So every 1.5 seconds, okay. Looks good. Okay. It hits us and it kills us, okay. This is what we want. I mean, it's not what we want, but it's what the game should be. You go too far away and it goes back into its kind of circle state. We get close to it and it's going to start attacking us some more. Okay, good. Okay, and we should be able to run away. Too fast. Okay, that's looking really, really good. Now, let me show you this again. When the projectile hits the wall, it just kind of, what's here? Yeah, it just hits the wall. There's no animation. Now, I think we can do a bit better. Watch again. Yeah, it just kind of hits the wall. So let's do that. Let's do that a little bit better. So, let's open our bat splat object. Let's add an event, other, on animation end. Let's hide this. On animation end, we want to destroy the instance, okay? So, let's have that. Now, let's go to our bat projectile object. Let's have a destroy event here. And here, we actually want to create an instance of obj bat splat. So even though we're destroying the projectile, when this disappears, we want to replace it with this animation. And let me show you this animation. Let's go down to sprites, bat splat. Yeah, and that's what it's going to do. When it hits the wall, that's what we want to see. Okay. Let's go back to this object. So what was it? Bat projectile. Oh, sorry, that's my sprite. Here, bat projectile. So we want to create this bat splat. These need to be relative. Okay, and now if we press play, what I'm hoping is that when the projectile hits the wall, we get a nice animation. Yes, just like that. Oi. Nice splat animation. Okay, good. Looking really good. Yeah, really happy with that. Okay, you can add as many bats as you want. It's easy to do. Let me close this. Of course, the more bats you add, the more difficult it is for the player. Yeah, but you can add as many. Oi. Really difficult. Now, of course, if we've got a sword, and I haven't, but if you have a sword, then you can hit the projectiles and you can kill the bats as well. Yeah, it's very difficult without a sword. Yeah, But right guys, okay, I think we're done. Have fun with that, and I'll see you in the next lesson.